Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I have an amazing video for you guys today. We are going to be talking about flood zones. Now, if you just type in on Google US housing news, the first three stories that come out basically under the news tab is all about flooding and how homes are being incredibly overpriced. So let's jump into the Washington Post article because a lot of people like to this is literally a issue that I believe has become partisan, right? So there's a lot of people that do not believe in climate change. They think it's all a hoax, and there's a lot of people, possibly more, that believe that climate change is happening and the sea levels are rising. So to some of us, it'll be like, okay, what's the big deal? Here's the big deal: how it affects the housing market. Why? Because when you have a big storm flood your area, you now have to ask insurance to basically pay for all the damages. Water flood damage could be incredibly expensive. It could ruin, just think about like all your drywall inside the house. You could have, at least in the first story, you're gonna have mold issues. You're going to have massive problems, and then the problem there lies that, who's gonna if a neighborhood goes through a nasty flood, it lowers the price of that neighborhood. It lowers the value of that neighborhood. So right now, that what this article is claiming is that if you factor in the flood risks that are around neighborhoods around the United States, here it is. We are very overvalued. Like, those homes are charging way more than they should be. And here's the estimate. They estimate that across the United States, properties in vulnerable areas are overvalued by $121 billion to $237 billion. That if those acknowledged risks are realized, low-income homeowners are particularly stand to lose a significant amount of equity, right? Because there's a lot of areas I know, like in Houston on the east side, where it gets flooding. It's more of the low-income homeowners. So you can see if they have problems, their whole neighborhood's going to be underwater, and it's going to lower the value. Another thing is, like I said, the damage, right? The damage when you have insurance companies now charging higher premiums, it kind of it makes it a lot more expensive to live in those neighborhoods. So that's part of the overvaluation. If you go to a non-flood zone, you don't have to pay those extreme insurance costs. Now remember, you need insurance to be able to close on a house. So that could further lower the prices of these neighborhoods, because if you as a buyer want to go into a neighborhood, you find out that one neighborhood has a flood zone, you find out that you got to pay some extra insurance to live there, and it's astronomically high, and the house is still expensive. Most likely you're not going to buy there. You're going to go to a zone where you're going to get a better deal, right? And that is going to essentially, cities get their money for their police, for their roads, for all their stuff from property taxes. Well, most of them, right? Most states are like that. So when you have communities, large communities that are affected by flooding, if people start moving out of there, and if those prices crash in those neighborhoods, you're going to see the states are going to start generating even less money. And that could cripple certain communities. It could cripple, their financial system, because again, they could go bankrupt. Remember, it could mean less revenue for infrastructure, for schools, for social services. It actually impacts the entire community. According to the study, a significant portion of overvalued properties are concentrated in communities along the Atlantic and Gulf Coast that have heightened exposure to hurricanes and rising seas, lax flood disclosure laws, and high proportion of residents who do not view climate change as an imminent threat. Properties in Florida are estimated to be overvalued by $50 billion based on their actual flood exposure, according to the research. $50 billion. Now, you got all those really expensive neighborhoods right on the beach that are going to take a big hit. If I was saying in some earlier videos that if insurance companies pull out, and they turn it into a cash deal, those prices are gonna plummet, right? Because nobody's gonna I just don't see a lot of rich people taking the chance of dropping $5 million on a beach property that you can't get insurance for, right? But let's see what let's see what happens. This is definitely a growing concern, in my opinion. I think that it is a real threat, and everything in our home is becoming so expensive, right, to fix things. So it's a really bad situation. People also like to take advantage of the system. You have a flood, and then they're going in and they're throwing, all, like, they got to make sure that everything in their house breaks, so they get all new stuff, right? Sometimes these companies come in, these insurance companies, and they write just a blanket check, that has happened in the past. So things, so then, yeah, it screws everybody in the long run. But at the end of the day, you also have situations where the, lawmakers don't necessarily want to tell people the real risk of flooding zones in those areas. Why? Because again, it spooks people, it scares people, and it kills the market. So they, even though it is somewhat the right thing to do, when you start really peeling back the onion, you realize that, prevention, and learning about it really means that it's gonna hurt the market. And you could tell that politicians are just not in the mood to do something like that, right? If you come into a really expensive neighborhood, let's just say in Palm Beach County, in Palm Beach, right there on the beach, that is, any bad hurricane could, have massive floods in that area. And you sit there and start making laws that, really show how dangerous it is to live and to buy property here. And it's gonna make everybody basically rethink about living in that area. People might want to sell. It might crash that. Insurance companies might like take a notice and say, oh man, if politicians are scared of these areas, maybe it's not a good idea for us to really be in there, or maybe we need to start charging even higher premiums. So it opens up a whole can of worms that I don't think anybody wants to be a part of. But at the end of the day, when those storms come, when that sea level rises and we have, flooding, we end up losing bigger because we didn't take advantage, we didn't fix it in the first place. But again, there's just not much to fix. Everything is super expensive right now, and it doesn't look like it's going to be going down too much. Okay, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a tough pill to swallow, right? Knowing that our world is changing, our country is changing, and we've built all these really beautiful houses and neighborhoods all over, and we might have to move, we might have to relocate. I mean, it is part of human nature to move, but it just sort of sucks, right? Because there's a lot of money on the line here. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and finish this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're new to my channel, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button and go ahead and like and leave a comment. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next video.